Hello everyone, my name is Catalyst, and welcome back to the How to Not Suck series, the grammatically incorrect series that teaches you how to play Battlefield. As you may know, with this series we have covered every single specialist in the game, and with every new season comes a new specialist, so we need to learn how to most optimally play them, learn their quirks and tricks, and then suggest loadouts for them. In case you are new here or have missed any previous episodes in the series and are interested in watching them, there will be a link to the playlist in the description below. Today's episode is going to be covering Zain, the Airburst assault specialist that has the personality trait of a cheerleader more than an actual soldier. Zain as a specialist is one that I think falls flat in the creativity department, which, coming after a specialist that has a deployable minigun, doesn't do him any favors, but I think overall he is a solid addition to the game, and for some players with a specific playstyle, he is going to be a good choice. Today we'll go over his XM370A Airburst launcher, when the best time to use it is, and how to best utilize him on the battlefield. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's get to work. So Zain is a specialist that is similar to Crawford in how he was balanced, in the sense that if he were balanced any other way, his kit would probably be overpowered. Health on kill regeneration and the Airburst has the potential to be very strong, but as he is currently in the game, in my opinion, he is just kind of mid, and you know, that's okay. As I said in the intro, I think that this is a specialist that some players will absolutely love and that others will find completely useless. And that's no fault of his own, because there are times where his kit does shine and is very useful, but unfortunately, like a lot of other specialists in the game, there are some key gameplay design choices apart from the specialists themselves that really hinder their ability to be effective, and that's kind of what happens to Zain. But let's go ahead and get into his kit. Zain's specialist ability is his XM370A Airburst launcher, which is a 5-round airburst gun that causes AoE damage in a short radius. I was unable to get an accurate idea of what that damage radius is, but just in an eyeball test, it's not very big. I would say 5 meters at most. You need to be fairly accurate with your placement of rounds, which, speaking of, while using the airburst launcher, you do need to briefly wait for the rangefinder to lock in so your shots are accurate. So if you've been wondering why you are shooting at someone and your shots are dusting, it's likely because the range is not dialed in correctly. The good news is that you can press the V key on your keyboard while aiming down sights, and your rifle will automatically zero in for you, so you don't have to un-ADS and then re-ADS to redial in the range. The maximum range is 100 meters, so you can't snipe people from across the map, unfortunately, with this thing, but most of the times that you get into a gunfight, they're not going to be that far away. The Airburst does have a cooldown similar to how Liz's rockets and Falk's syringe pistol work, and that cooldown is 15 seconds before you will be resupplied with 5 more Airburst rounds. Of course, the Airburst is a projectile, so it does unfortunately get caught by Irish's Sentinel system, or at least it should. Those things have the tendency to be buggy at times. And that's really all there is for his main ability. It's fairly straightforward. Now about his passive ability. Zain's passive trait is called Perseverance, which upon getting a kill will instantly start your health regeneration. This trait has no cooldown, but the regeneration process is stopped when you take damage of any kind. Now this is where things get interesting for Zain, because more so than his primary ability, this is where the potential lies in his kit. On the surface of things, what his passive trait offers is to free up a gadget slot for you, essentially, because I think it would be fair to say that a majority of players primarily run one of 3 things in Battlefield 2042, and that's the recoilless rocket launcher, the medpen, or the medbox, so anti-tank or self-sustain. So theoretically speaking, depending on how good Zain's regeneration trait is, you can free yourself up that gadget slot for anti-vehicle gadgets instead of being forced to choose between the two. And this is something that, just as a side note, I think will be interesting to see how this changes with the class rework coming in a month or so. But back to the point, going into this, if Zain's regeneration ability was even remotely comparable to running a medpen, then he would be a top 3 specialist in the game. So how does it actually compare? Firstly, I want to thank my pal Jordy for getting this footage for me while I was away on Thanksgiving holiday. It greatly helped speed up the release of this episode, so big thanks to him. Feel free to check out his channel. He's a great guy and a great player. There will be a link in the description below. From left to right on your screen right now is the normal health regen, the regen with Zain's specialist ability, and then regeneration while using a med pen. And you can see here that when compared side by side, Zain's passive finishes a full 7 seconds behind the med pen, and, well, normal regeneration, we don't even really need to talk about how slow that is. It's no wonder med pens are meta. Now sure, 7 seconds may not seem like a long time in the grand scheme of things, but for the playstyle that Zain is advertised for, that can be a very long time if you are playing aggressively, and this is when you get a kill directly after you take damage. If you get stuck in a situation, for instance, where you get into a gunfight but your teammate gets the kill, this trait does not work for assists. Assists have no factoring into it, so oftentimes you're just kind of stuck there in a difficult situation, desperately needing a kill but being too low on health to take a gunfight, so you just kind of huddle yourself in a corner and wait for normal health regeneration. So a 7-second difference is the most optimal you can be without a med pen, and every second that ticks away without a kill, the worse this trait becomes. That's not to mention the fact that this trait gets cancelled by incoming damage, and this is Battlefield. So you can take damage from anywhere. You can take explosive damage from a grenade that is a good distance away from you, and then you are left scrambling for a kill. So is this trait better than having normal regeneration? Absolutely, and there are times where this ability does save your life, such as this clip right here where I airburst the camper on the building, and that gives me just enough health back to win the next gunfight and go on a pretty nice streak. But I would say for every situation that perseverance saves my life, there is another situation in which it screws me over. And that's what I meant earlier about some game design decisions affecting the specialist. Battlefield 2042 is a very chaotic game. It's unreadable in many instances, and you take damage quickly and often from multiple directions without many options for cover due to the maps. So perseverance just doesn't save you as much as you want it to. I still think that it's an okay ability, but I think what would really help Zain is if assists in some way were counted into the equation. Maybe if you do 75% of the damage to an enemy, that would count towards proccing your perseverance trait. Maybe that's something that the developers will look at moving forward. So, what is the best way to play Zain then? Well, as much as he is advertised as a super aggressive assault specialist, I think that title still goes to McKay, as you can't really play Zain as such. Although I do think that he can excel in close quarters. How many situations are truly close quarters in Battlefield 2042? I think that realistically you need to play Zain with a hint of restraint, similar to how you would play with Crawford almost. Now, he's not as quite as angle-holdy as I think Crawford is, but this is absolutely another specialist that relies on the player's game sense to achieve success, whereas other specialists are a little more straightforward and their abilities are set it and forget it gadgets. Zain is another specialist that you won't really be using your primary ability all the time, but reacting to what is happening around you will present opportunities for you to be really effective with it. To me, the most optimal way to play Zain is to really cater and go hard around your perseverance trait, and I would say that this is one of those rare cases where you need to treat the passive ability almost as the main ability. The Airburst rifle by itself isn't strong enough to be a priority. It's annoying, sure, especially on the receiving end, but by itself, it's not going to wow you all that much. Sure, there are some instances, especially in Breakthrough, where players will clump up into high traffic areas and you can do a lot of damage, but for me personally, the name of the game with the Airburst rifle is chip damage. Ideally, you should use the Airburst rifle as a means to finish off your targets that are behind cover so you can activate your perseverance trait. I wouldn't even really bother taking out the Airburst rifle unless you see a clump of 3 or more enemies, then you can try and get some damage in. I think the Airburst is also particularly effective against snipers, which there do seem to be a lot of them these days. In the few hours that I played yesterday, there were multiple times where I either saw a scope glint in the distance or the sniper missed his first shot, and I just pulled out my Airburst rifle, dialed in the range, and then shot 3 quick rounds and either killed him or got him to D-peak long enough for me to move up. But as I said, this series is about trying to find the most optimal way to play the specialist, and I really think that you need to be selective in using the Airburst because it's a scoped weapon, so you will lose your range of vision while using it. You'll be pretty exposed as well, and it doesn't do a huge amount of damage because of how short the damage radius is. Like, if you got into a gunfight and elected to use the Airburst instead of a gun, I think with the DTK and the meta that the way it is, you would lose almost, I would say, 90% of the time unless that player just misses you, of course. So play with a slight bit of caution, use head glitches, patrol flanks and lanes, try to isolate yourself into as many 1v1s as you can so you don't get overwhelmed and have time for your passive ability to kick in. And if there is an opportunity to use the Airburst, quickly dial in, fire 3 rounds at most, then move on, unless there is a big clump of enemies in which you want to invest more time in getting some AoE damage. Play around your passive ability as much as you can and really do everything you can to play through it. As for what loadouts I would suggest with him, I would suggest running either an LMG or one of the more long-range assault rifles like the SFAR and the AC-42, which is really good again. You can run some of the more rangy SMGs as well. I was having some success with the AKS and the AM-40, which I know is technically an assault rifle, but to me it's more of a submachine gun, at least it behaves more like one. But you really want to play around Perseverance as much as you can if you intend to run him without using a med pen, which you can run him also with a med pen if the regeneration is just too slow for you and you like using the Airburst rifle enough to use Zain as a specialist. But, you know, as we discussed earlier, the med pen is much better, but that regeneration that you get with Zain is much better than the base regeneration. I don't normally suggest shotguns because I despise them, and God, I can't believe that I am suggesting shotguns right now, but I think if you wanted to try the super aggressive route with Zain, shotguns would be a good pairing with him. I would suggest running C5 with Zain, as you can throw C5 over some short walls and around some corners. You can stick them on walls, you can destroy tanks and get explosive kills to activate Perseverance, and likewise I would also recommend frag grenades. You know me, I'm a big smoke grenade stan, but we are really trying to do as much as we can to optimize the Perseverance trait. An alternative, if you want, this is one of the few characters that I would also suggest running spot grenades as well, just to give you some more information on where your next kill can come from. As always, I suggest other compatible specialists to run along with this specialist if you're running in a squad with friends. For Zain, I would suggest Crawford, Irish, and Pake. Crawford is a nice choice to pair with Zain because he resupplies gadget and ability ammo, and in pairing with the assault rifle, there is a potentially pretty deadly combo with the minigun. Irish's deployable cover is very helpful for Zain as a head glitch for him to take gunfights from or hide behind in case he needs to wait for his normal regeneration. And lastly, Pake is a good choice due to her scanner. She can see through walls and relay information to Zain about where his next kill may come from. Normally at the end of the video of the series, I rank the specialist in both Conquest and Breakthrough in comparison to other specialists in the game, but I think it's time that we re-rank all of the specialists in the game, seeing that it's been about 6 months since the last video and a lot has happened. So that is what we will do in a separate video that will be coming out later this week, so be on the lookout for that. That's the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you found this video useful and enjoyed your time here. If you did enjoy the video, drop a like and leave a comment if you made it to the end of the video. It helps me tremendously in the algorithm. If you enjoyed it just that much, you should consider subscribing for more Season 3 content. Once again, thank you all for watching. My name is Catalyst, and I will see you all another time.